Receive income from these four buckets. How do you diversify your money, especially at retirement, for safety? In this episode, we're going to answer that question, and you're going to understand the four primary sources people usually draw from retirement and how sometimes they mismanage these. And I want you to double or triple what you will generate from these four income buckets. So my name's Doug Andrew, and I've been a financial strategist and retirement planning specialist, and also helping people minimize taxes for more than 45 years. In fact, in 2005, I let all my professional licenses automatically expire the last business day of that year, December 30th, to become a consumer advocate. I was fine, but I wanted to go out and empower people like you how to accomplish what I did myself, and I helped thousands of people do. And it was interesting, I could not teach people in the language they needed to hear because of silly regulations. And so in order to write books and be an author and get on the radio and TV without having to walk on eggshells, oh, you can't say it that way. I just said, you know what? I don't need any of these licenses anymore. And so this is about you, not about me. And I'm going to show you the four basic income buckets that most people draw money from. And I'm going to recommend what ratio I think you ought to have in each of these four buckets. This is what generates income. Now, people accumulate money in these buckets, but at some point when you set money aside, you're anticipating starting to take income down the road, okay? So we have investment income, we have real estate income. Sometimes people don't own real estate, that's fine. They don't want to be a landlord and take out trash and fix toilets the rest of their life, but some people do. You have guaranteed income, and you'll see what that is, and then we have tax-free income. Now, I like this one the most, but most of the people that I would meet would go through their whole lifetime and they were way too top heavy in this one. So let's get into the nitty gritty, the specifics of these four buckets, and I'm going to give you my take on what percent I think you ought to have of your money in each of the buckets and how you can sort of balance and diversify so that you have the best posture and you don't outlive your money. Does that sound good? So here we go. The four retirement accumulation and then income buckets are as so. We have the investment bucket. Now, this would be usually yet to be taxed money in IRAs and 401ks or the like, usually invested in the market. This is where the majority of Americans have their money. And when people would come to me, in my opinion, they were way too top heavy in this one. They would have 80 to 90% or more of their money in these situations. And they were just sort of following the herd and thinking they were going to be in a lower tax bracket when they retire because everybody told them that. Oh, you'll be in a lower bracket when you retired. And then they hit retirement and they weren't. And they're going, what am I going to do? If I pull out the money, I'm going to get clobbered with tax. Well, do you really need the money? Their CPA would ask. Well, no, I guess. Well, then leave it there. And you'll save tax. Well, wait a minute. Save tax in the long haul? No. Save tax that year. Oh, you'll save tax if you keep deferring it till you're 70 and a half. And then if you still don't need it, just take out RMDs, required minimum distributions. Worst advice I've ever heard. You're just delaying the inevitable and compounding the problem. I have a software program I designed that showed people the darkness of the night. If they kept doing that, deferring till 70 and a half, and then taking out minimum distributions to their LE, life expectancy, people were flabbergasted. They would pay through the nose. And if they left it to their spouse, their kids, their grandkids, everybody, it just kept compounding the tax. People would say, well, why do they tell you to defer, do a stretch IRA and take RMDs on CNBC? I go, who's funding CNBC? Government revenuers. Why would they want to kill a partnership where they get a third of everything those accounts will ever earn? forever. They don't want to tell you to take it out. So people would have too much money here. In my opinion, I think the most you ought to have in this bucket when you retire, at retirement. See, at retirement, planning is totally different than what you did for retirement. So I like to catch people, ideally, about 5 years minimum before retirement and get the majority of this money out of here. The tax is over and done with sooner than later. And many times we can offset some or all of the tax by resurrecting new deductions. I've helped many people get money out of here, saving them $250,000, $500,000. One couple last year, we saved $1.2 million in unnecessary tax by getting it out of here instead of letting it compound and delay the inevitable. So I would recommend no more than 30% of your income be in this one at retirement. So we go over to the real estate bucket. Now, sometimes people don't want to be a landlord. They just want to own their home. That's fine. But if they want to have rental income, they have non-owner occupied rental income properties. And it could be a single resident home. It could be a duplex. It could be multifamily apartment complexes. It could be commercial strip malls, whatever. But you know, a lot of times people, when they approach retirement, they had in mind that this was going to create all this cash flow, and they realize it's very management intensive. They keep selling and then deferring the tax by doing 1031 exchanges, and they didn't realize they were going from the frying pan into the fire, inheriting new headaches. So they hire a property manager, and then I've seen horror stories and heard them where the property managers embezzled money and so forth. It was horrible. I remember talking to one gentleman. He was 76 and he had 2 huge apartment complexes. They were worth over $4 million. I said, you know what? Just sell. Take the net after tax and put it into a portfolio of my favorite vehicle, tax-free one, the laser fund. And he says, well, how much could I take in income? And I showed him, and he goes, how can you do that? That's more income than I get out of my rental income, and I have to pay tax on that. And I go, yeah, this one's tax-free. He goes, where have you been all my life? I said, well, you've had your focus, blinders on with the real estate is the cat's meow. No, you didn't know what you didn't know. So correct it. And so he's all ready to sell, do that, pay the capital gain, and enjoy tax-free income of over $200,000 a year the rest of his life. And then he goes, oh, these apartments are my kids' inheritance. I've heard that so many times. So we brought in his 6 kids. We said, now, I want you to shoot straight with your father. What are you going to do with these apartments when you inherit them? And they looked at their dad and said, and Dad, now, we don't want to offend you, but we hate these apartments. The minute you're 6 feet under, on the way home from the funeral home, we're going to put them up for sale. I said, why do you want to leave behind these apartments for your kids to deal with? If you put it in the laser fund and you pass away, they'll get back double to triple what is in there. So I said, kids, what would you rather have? A bunch of apartments that you continue to have to deal with and take out the trash and fix toilets and evict tenants? Or would you like to have double that, tax-free, in about 3 weeks? We'll take the tax-free double amount. This happens all the time. So I would recommend no more than 30% of your money be in here, if any at all. Let's go to the next bucket. This is the guaranteed bucket. You ready? So the guaranteed bucket, I would recommend anywhere from 0, maybe up to 80% of your income could come from this one. What's guaranteed? Well, you might think Social Security is guaranteed, so you count your Social Security in that bucket. Could be a defined benefit pension. If you taught school for 30 years, you get, usually in most states, 2% of your last best paychecks for every year of service. So if you taught for 30 years, you'll get about 60%. If you were making $5,000 a month when you retired, you would get $3,000 a month in a pension from teaching school. So that's also a guarantee. The only other guarantee would be an annuity. And an annuity is a savings account with an insurance company. Insurance companies, the multi-trillion-dollar legal reserve insurance industry is probably one of the safest. It's the backbone of America and the backbone of the world. But I would probably not own 99.9% of the annuities that are out there. I doubt I will ever own an annuity, but if I did, there's only a couple that I would put my money into, and it's for the guaranteed income. These are very unique. And if you put money into it, you can get a guaranteed payout that keeps up with inflation. And if you run out of money in the annuity at age 80, 85, 90. If you run out of money, you will not run out of income because the insurance company guarantees that income will pay out and increase with the cost of living if you live to be 120. But most annuities do not do what I just said. So if you're one that likes that guarantee, you can look into one of those, and it would be an indexed annuity structured so that it keeps up with the cost of living. My favorite vehicle is the fourth one over here, the tax-free bucket. So let me tell you why. I would recommend between 40 to 60% of your money be tax-free in that one. Let's talk about the three most popular tax-free buckets. One would be a Roth, IRA, 401k. You're actually funding it with after-tax money, but it grows tax-free and you can access the money tax-free. The problem is most Roths have too many strings attached. In other words, you can't put in as much as maybe you'd like. There's a certain dollar amount or a certain percent of your income. If you make too much money, you can't participate. If you put in money, you can't take it out for 5 years or till you're 59 and a half. These are the kinds of strings attached. I don't like that. What I put my money into is referred to as the laser fund. And savvy CPAs and tax attorneys actually call it the rich man's Roth, and you don't have to be rich to have one, but the rich can't own a Roth. In the laser fund, I can put in whatever I want, $500 a month. I could put in $200,000. I could put in $300,000. If I needed money back 4 days later, I can go grab a whole chunk, $250,000. There's no penalties. I can coast for 5 years and not put money in, and then I can throw in a whole bunch and make it all up. When I pass away with the laser fund, at my current age of 67, every million would blossom to about 2.5 million if I died. There's not a Roth around that will do that. And I've usually earned at least 2.5% higher rates of return than the average Roth does in America. So why would I own a Roth when I have the two benefits Roths have, tax-free growth and tax-free access? I have those two benefits in the laser fund and those three additional benefits that Roths will never have. Some people talk about municipal bonds. I've always earned probably 2 or 3% higher than the municipal bond rates at any given time. But I think the laser fund is way safer than most municipalities that sometimes have filed bankruptcy. There's been many municipalities that have had to sort of file bankruptcy and try to borrow money from the public with bonds to try to pay back people. So I prefer the laser fund, and that's why I wrote the book. And I'll share with you sort of the takeaways here and how you can get a free copy so that you can diversify into these 4 buckets. So here's an example that will help you sort of connect the dots. Many times I would have couples come to me and they may say, well, we have $40,000 a year coming in a pension or Social Security, and we have another $160,000 a year coming from our IRAs or 401ks or what have you. And I go, yeah, you have $200,000 of income, way to go. The problem is it's all showing up on your 1040 tax return here. Is there any way around that? Yes. Well, how come my advisor didn't tell me about this? So what we would do is over a 5-year period, we would do a strategic rollout. Many times, most of that $200,000 of income was coming out of yet to be taxed money in IRAs or 401ks in the market. We get it out of the market so that it's not subject to market volatility. We convert to tax-free over a 5-year period by putting it in what I call the laser fund. Get the taxes over and done with. And if it's real estate, sometimes they sell their real estate and put it into a portfolio of laser funds, or they maybe increase the rate of return on their real estate. But after 5 years, many people, just like that, they would still have $200,000 of income. But now only $80,000 of it shows up on their tax return. Where's the other $120,000? It's not deemed earned, passive, or portfolio income. Those are the only 3 types of income that you have to pay income tax on a 1040 tax return. The IRS knows they're receiving another $120,000 a year, but they know it's tax-free. It's not even worth auditing. It's been tax-free for over 100 years. It's a sacred cow. I saved them a third of $120,000 of taxable income. That's $40,000 in tax. You take $40,000 in tax savings, times it by 20, 25 years. I saved that couple $1 million just by diversifying into those 4 buckets. You can do that too. That's why I wrote the book. We cover all 4 buckets in this book. You can get a free copy. I want you to watch this episode. And this will help you understand the difference of how you can have a powerful generator instead of a battery approach to your retirement. And you'll have an opportunity to get a free copy of the book by going to laserfund.com, and I'll send one out. You just pay $5.95 shipping and handling. And you can start on your path to diversifying and making sure that you can save maybe $1 million of unnecessary tax in retirement. What could you do with an extra $1 million?